Title: You turned loss into clarity. They thought the silence would destroy you. They believed the emptiness would swallow you whole. They assumed that when everything you once held close slipped through your fingers, you would collapse with it. Because loss has a reputation. Loss is supposed to weaken you. Loss is supposed to confuse you. Loss is supposed to make you question your worth, your direction, your identity. And they watched. They watched closely. They watched as doors closed in your face, as voices faded, as promises dissolved like smoke in the cold air of reality. They watched as the world you once trusted cracked beneath your feet. And they whispered to themselves, this is where they break. But what they didn't understand, what they couldn't understand, was that loss did not destroy you. Loss revealed you. Because when everything unnecessary fell away, when illusions burned, when expectations shattered like glass on unforgiving ground, what remained was truth. And truth is clarity. They expected your story to end in the ashes. They expected you to drown in the storm. They expected the silence to echo with your surrender. They imagined you frozen in time, haunted by memories of what once was, replaying moments like broken records, unable to move forward, unable to breathe without the weight of yesterday pressing against your chest. They expected regret to become your prison. They expected doubt to become your language. They expected you to look in the mirror and see someone incomplete, someone unfinished, someone defeated, because they only understand power when it is loud, when it is obvious, when it is decorated with applause and approval. They never imagined the quiet power of someone rebuilding in the dark. They never imagined the strength of someone who stops chasing what left and starts discovering what remains. They never imagined what happens when a soul stops begging for belonging and starts creating its own meaning. They expected tears, but they didn't expect transformation. They expected collapse, but they didn't expect clarity, because loss stripped away the noise. Loss removed the masks. Loss forced you to meet yourself without distractions. And in that meeting, something awakened. Not loudly, not dramatically, but deeply. A realization whispered beneath the chaos. You were never losing your life. You were losing what was never meant to stay. At first, it felt like wandering through ruins. Fragments of memories, scattered like shattered statues of a past version of you. Reminders of who you thought you needed to be, who you thought you needed to please, who you thought you needed beside you. And every step forward felt uncertain. Every breath felt heavier than the last, because transformation rarely feels heroic in the beginning. It feels lonely. It feels confusing. It feels like walking through fog, unsure whether the ground beneath you is solid or slowly disappearing. But something changed. You stopped asking why everything fell apart and started asking what is trying to emerge. You stopped chasing explanations and started observing patterns. You stopped searching for approval and started listening to silence. Because silence teaches. Silence reveals. Silence shows you what noise once tried to hide. And in that silence, you saw the truth. Not everyone who leaves is a loss. Not every ending is a tragedy. Not every goodbye is a failure. Sometimes it is a rescue from expectations that were shrinking your spirit, a rescue from environments that were dimming your light, a rescue from attachments that demanded you become smaller, quieter, less authentic. They thought you lost something valuable, but what you actually lost were illusions. Illusions about who deserved your loyalty. Illusions about where your worth comes from. Illusions about needing validation from people who never understood your vision. Loss simplified everything. Loss removed distractions, disguised as priorities. Loss stripped away comfort that was quietly suffocating your growth. Loss forced you to confront the most uncomfortable truth. You were outgrowing places that still expected the old version of you. And growth rarely happens in comfortable rooms. Growth happens in burning rooms. Rooms where expectations collapse. Rooms where identities dissolve. Rooms where the old self cannot survive. And as painful as it felt, something inside you knew you were not being destroyed. You are being refined. Fire does not ask permission before it transforms what it touches. Storms do not apologize before they reshape landscapes. And loss does not negotiate with attachment. Loss removes what is weak, so strength can emerge without disguise. You began noticing something unexpected. The weight on your shoulders started feeling lighter. The need to explain yourself started fading. The urge to chase approval started dissolving, because clarity changes how you see everything. Clarity reveals what deserves your energy and what never did. Clarity shows you which voices were guiding you and which voices were distracting you. Clarity separates noise from truth, and suddenly, decisions became simpler. Not easier, but clearer. You began choosing peace over performance. Growth over comfort, authenticity over acceptance. And something powerful happened. You stopped negotiating with your own potential. They thought loss would make you desperate, but instead, it made you selective. Selective with your time, selective with your energy. Selective with who gets access to your inner world. Because once clarity arrives, confusion loses its control. And once confusion loses its control, fear loses its influence. They expected you to beg for what left, but instead, you began questioning why you ever settled for less. They expected you to cling to the past, but instead, you started designing a future that requires a stronger version of you. They expected emotional chaos, but instead, they saw emotional discipline. And discipline terrifies those who expected weakness, because discipline is quiet power. It does not shout. It does not argue. It does not seek approval. It simply builds day by day. Choice by choice, moment by moment. They watched as you stopped reacting and started responding. They watched as you stopped chasing and started attracting. They watched as you stopped doubting and started deciding. And suddenly, something shifted. The same loss they thought would shrink you expanded you. The same silence they thought would isolate you introduced you to yourself. The same ending they thought would destroy your confidence rebuilt your foundation. And they began to wonder, did they underestimate you? Or did they misunderstand the power of clarity? Because clarity is dangerous. Clarity makes manipulation impossible. Clarity makes distraction ineffective. Clarity makes you immune to approval addiction. When you see clearly, you stop tolerating confusion disguised as opportunity. You stop entertaining conversations that drain your spirit. You stop explaining your boundaries to people committed to misunderstanding you. And they noticed your calm. They noticed your composure. They noticed how the same situations that once disturbed you no longer reached you, because clarity creates distance. Distance from chaos. Distance from drama. Distance from emotional traps, disguised as connection. They tried to provoke reactions, but found only silence. They tried to reopen wounds, but found only wisdom. They tried to recreate the past, but discovered you no longer live there. And nothing unsettles them more than realizing you are no longer emotionally available for confusion. You are no longer negotiable. You are no longer easy to distract. Because once someone experiences clarity, they cannot pretend blindness again. And they began asking themselves questions they never asked before. What changed? Why are you no longer reacting the same way? Why does their absence no longer control your mood? Why does their opinion no longer influence your identity? Because loss taught you something powerful. Anything that can be taken from you was never your foundation. Anything dependent on external approval was never your truth. Anything that required you to shrink was never your destiny. Loss removed what was temporary, so you could discover what is permanent. Your resilience, your awareness, your ability to rebuild stronger than before. And suddenly, they realized something unsettling. You did not lose power. You gained independence from needing their power. Indifference is misunderstood. People confuse indifference with coldness, but true indifference is peace. True indifference is emotional. Freedom. True indifference is no longer allowing external chaos to dictate internal balance. You no longer chase closure because clarity gave it to you. You no longer need apologies because awareness replaced expectations. You no longer need explanations because patterns already revealed the truth. They thought closure would come from conversations, but closure came from understanding. Understanding that not everything lost is meant to return. Understanding that not everyone who leaves is meant to be replaced. Understanding that sometimes space is necessary for growth to breathe, and growth requires distance from what once defined you, because identity evolves, purpose evolves, standards evolve, and loss accelerates evolution.